You're listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live. Hello and welcome to the Garibaldi Red podcast from Nottinghamshire Live, where we are streaming live on Facebook with a sort of impromptu episode just to plug a couple of things. And we're very grateful to be joined by Reds legend in Steve Chettle. Good morning, Steve. How are you?
Good morning, Matt. I'm very well, thank you. Hope you are.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm good. We've just got you on for a few things. Fans don't get to watch football very often these days, unfortunately, but you're the Basford United manager and your team are going to be playing in front of fans soon, and obviously it's relevant to this podcast. Why don't you just tell people what's coming up at the weekend to start with?
Well, this weekend we've got an in-house match. It's from next Tuesday, where Nottingham Forest are very gratefully going to send over an under-23s team with Gary Brazil. I've had communication with them. Obviously, we played them last year in the County Cup, which was a big success for the football club. Looking forward to seeing Chris, Andy and the rest of the boys come down here next Tuesday on the 8th of September.
How many people can watch? Is it 600? And obviously you sold a lot of tickets, but it's going to be a sellout.
Yeah, we've had a couple of test games. We were at 150 for our first game. We had 300 last weekend against Alfreton, and now we can go up to 600 against Forest next Tuesday. So it'd be a good experience. It'd be nice to get a lot of people back in the ground. It's been a bit slow, people coming in. The weather was horrendous for a first game, but Alfreton was good on Saturday. But we had a 300 sellout of our capacity, obviously.
What's it been like as a manager in the kind of coronavirus times? Has it been a different job or not? Has it been largely the same just now you've come back from lockdown?
It's predominantly stayed the same. We did some business at the end of last season before transfer deadline day, which was obviously the week before the pandemic started and everyone was locked down. So we signed 2 players at the end of March and they didn't play until pre-season this year. So it's been strange for them. We did some business during the lockdown at distance. We met people across an empty room, which was weird. We couldn't do any photographs or handshaking, and it was just strange times. And when we came back for pre-season, we were working in groups of 6 and 8, which was not ideal, but it was the way we were living at the time. But since then we've moved on and we've got back to working in big groups, and now our pre-season started earnest, and we've got a start date for our season.
Why don't you give people a free plug for your season? Can you tell people when it starts and what your aims are this season? Have they changed at all?
Well, our aims are like last season. We were sat in the playoffs when everything came to a halt. We start our season on September the 19th at home to Warrington Town, another club that was up there chasing promotion last year. And it's going to be a big ask again, but we'll do as well as we can.
Just in terms of Forest, then, as a Reds legend. They sold Tyler Walker last week, and you've worked with Tyler. You've known him for quite a while. He's gone to Coventry City. Were you sad when he went, or do you see it as a great opportunity for the player?
Well, it's always sad when someone's been there from being a kid from the academy and working right way through the system into the first team. But I think it's progression for Tyler. Obviously, he's been out on loan at numerous clubs. He's done really well and scored goals. And when he's come back, he's scored goals in cameo appearances more than anything else. But hopefully, can get his teeth into Coventry City and have a long and an established career scoring goals for them now.
Do you think it's a success from a player development point of view for Forest that they've got him into senior football, playing in the Championship again, or is there kind of an element of failure that they couldn't bring him through when he was so close for so long into their first team as a kind of a mainstay of the team?
I think success is getting people into your first team for year in, year out. And his chances were limited with the people that were playing. Obviously, Lewis is scoring all the goals last year as well, and Tyler needs to go out and play football consistently. And it happens to everybody, whether you're young, middle-aged, or like myself when I was at the end of my career. Sometimes you have to move on, which is best for yourself.
What's his potential, do you think? Because he seems to have all the attributes. Do you think he just needs a run of games and he could become a good Championship player, a Premier League player? What's the ceiling for a young player like him?
Well, his chance in the first place is to play regularly. That's what he needs to be doing. He needs to be scoring goals, and you never know. You might take what people might see as a backward step, going to another club which is a lesser status potentially than Forest, but he's got potential to do really well and move on again, or he moves on with the club where he's at, which is a possibility.
You've followed Forest closely throughout your career, obviously after you left, and you'll have been as gutted as anyone, I bet, with the end of last season. As a manager now and as a former player, how do you think the club will respond to that?
Oh, they've made signings. They've made good signings. Obviously, it's added strength and depth to the squad and to the team. They've added new players on the backroom staff as well. So even though it did come to a terrible end, really, I can't say anything more than that. It came to a terrible end. They've got to push on and hopefully be better this season than when they finished last season.
What's the biggest test for them, do you think, Steve? Is it a mental thing now, just getting going again and a good start to the season?
Well, you'd like to think that it's their job and they know the role within the team and within the club, and they've just got to start all over again. You've got to put it to the back of your mind as much as you can, and they've got to start well. I think a great start would relieve some of the pain from the end of last season. Obviously, trying to get some fans back in the stadium and make it a tough place to go to at Forest, and keep winning away from home.
How pleased were you they stuck with Lamucci as a manager who knows the pressure of that job? You must be happy to see them give him another chance to bounce back.
Yeah, well, his remit was to get in the playoffs, and they missed out by a hair, really. But I think, like I say, consistency within backroom team as well is going to be vastly important, and I'm glad that they've seen that and done that.
What about the signings they made? You've touched on them. They've signed some experienced championship players, and then Bashiru, who's come from Sweden but sounds like a good player. Are you impressed with the business they've done?
Yeah, I am. They've signed some players that they say are established. Jack Colback and Luke Freeman. They signed those players. You've got the guy who just come across from Sweden as well. So they've got some experience in there as well as well as the youth that Forest have already got in their team already.
Let's put a question to you from the viewers, and do drop some more in for Steve. Mark Lapino, sorry if I've read that wrong, asks, what's your best memory as a Forest player?
Debut when I was a kid, really. I made my full debut the day before I was 19, and obviously been to watch Forest from being a young boy with my dad and seeing them through the successes of winning European Cups and League Cups, and just to be part of the club and making my debut was a fantastic thing.
Christoph Hibbert says his best memory of you is that goal at Bayern Munich, which is weirdly what you're best known for in a sense, for an individual moment. I suppose that must stick with you forever and constantly get brought up when people meet you.
Yeah, listen, I don't mind talking about it. It's not one of the things I was renowned for, obviously scoring goals, but it was a highlight of my career, and it was a high-profile game. And like I say, at the time we thought we were right in the tie. We were getting that away goal, but the home leg was completely different. But yeah, he's something I'll always remember. And obviously there's photographic evidence of it out there everywhere as well.
Craig Stringfellow says he's met you a few times and you're an absolute gentleman, which I'm sure is always nice to hear. What was the best Forest side you played in then? Because you were there for quite a while. Which one was the best kind of incarnation of Forest teams that you played in?
Well, there was kind of two eras of the teams I played in. When I first came into the team in the late 80s, we were getting to the League Cup finals, won League Cups, got to FA Cup semi-finals, got to an FA Cup final. That was a great team when I first started out with Stuart and Des playing alongside those. But then obviously we had a reincarnation when Frank came in as well, from getting promotion and finishing third in the Premier League and getting into the UEFA Cup, playing alongside Colin and playing with people like Stan Collymore and Brian Roy was a great team to be in as well. So there's probably two kind of eras where I really thought we had some fantastic footballers in great teams.
Do you keep in touch with many of those players, or is football kind of a nomadic business where people move on quite a lot?
People do move on. I speak to probably 3 or 4 people from both eras, really. I speak to Norm regularly, see Ian Warren, and speak to Colin Cooper, for various reasons, normally birthdays and things like that, and we get together occasionally. But no, like you say, you deal with a lot of people in your footballing career, and people move on, move to different parts of the country and even the world. So I just keep in touch with a handful, which is the ones that I speak to regularly.
Craig Stringfellow asks, and like I said, I know what you're going to say to this, but I'll ask you, why did you never get an England chance?
Because there were better players than me, Matt. I was very lucky to get 12 England under-21 caps, but at the time there were better players than myself, and I look back at it and I'm very proud of what I achieved with the 21s. And there's better players than myself who've not had England caps either, Matt. So it's not something that I dwell too much on.
Do you miss playing? I'm not sure I've asked you that before. Do you miss your playing days, or are you just happy doing what you're doing now as a manager?
I don't miss playing at all. I don't miss the Saturday afternoon matches. I miss being super fit and being around a bunch of players that you have great camaraderie with and work with every day. But we still have that now. Even though you're on we've gone to the dark side and the other side of the fence in management, you still have that camaraderie with the people that you work with every day. And I have that here with the academy boys that we work with every day. And obviously when we do the evenings with the first team on Saturday. So still have that buzz of being around football, but don't miss playing at all now.
Do you mind the pressure of management at all? I mean, you're at a good club now, but it can be a tough, lonely role, can't it?
Yeah, you have to surround yourself with people that you trust and you can talk to. But, we have pressure, or whatever level you do, whatever line of work that you're in, you have pressure to perform, and football is no different. We have standards that we set and we have things that we have to try and fulfill. But I can't imagine what it's like for people like Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola, the pressures that they're having to deal with day in, day out. It must be extreme, but they get paid the big bucks for that, I suppose, Matt.
Got a Basford United question here, which I'll put to you. This is a Forest podcast. Are you gutted to have lost Nat Watson?
Oh, Nat did really well for us. But, I spoke to Nat at the end of the season and Nat didn't want to stay anyway. So Nat wanted to move on, but like I said before, with the Tyler Walk situation, people move on for their own personal reasons. Wish him the best when he's gone to Ilkeston.
Back to the business of the day then in Nottingham Forest. Tony Wills asked, do you think Fabry will change the team formation? Did you see much of Forest last year in terms of to judge the style of play?
No, I only saw them on the TV. I thought they were obviously very counter-attack against the top teams. Even at home, I thought they were very counter-attack. But, you don't know. You've signed new players. You do your work through pre-season, and only Sabri will know what he's going to plan for the start of the season for when they get going.
Is it hard to be flexible as a manager? I guess you have the way you want your team to play. Is it hard to sometimes admit maybe this isn't working, I need to try something different, or not?
No, sometimes it's the best thing to do is admit you've got something wrong and try something different. You dictate it to by form, fitness, the players that you have. Hopefully you'll have a fit squad to choose from pre-season. And if it does change the shape, getting the best players in the right positions is paramount really for them.
Who do you lean on as a manager then? Do you have to just trust your assistant and do you bounce ideas around with coaches? How small is that circle when you're a manager?
Well, we have myself, Michael Leslie, Rob Duffy, Graham Roger in the first team coaching staff. We have 2 under 21 staff in Wayne Scott and Josh Law. And we all work together on Tuesday and Thursdays and we bounce ideas around, even from sessions, formations and personnel, especially through pre-season. Everybody's had minutes in different positions just to try and make sure that we're right when we do start on the 19th.
And will that be the same at every club across the land, do you think? Managers have their trusted circle who they'll liaise with and come to it, but ultimately it's the manager who makes the decision. Is that the same everywhere?
I don't know. I guess so. Some people obviously employ people to work alongside them for that specific reason, that you have somebody to bounce things off. It's a very lonely place in the dugout if you stood by yourself, because you're only ever fighting yourself, and the decisions you make, you have to stand by them yourself. But having somebody to bounce ideas off is vastly important for me.
Just going back to when you were a player in that sense, when you were a senior player then at Forest, did the managers, were they open to your opinions, or was it just the manager's way or the highway, and the ones you played under?
That's why I left. It was a highway more than anything else for myself. When I went across to Barnsley, when I went with Dave Bassett across there, I was 31 at the time when I left, and Dave did ask my opinion on some things. He even gave me a choice of how I wanted to do my own pre-season, which was very nice of him. But no, to start with, obviously, Mr. Clough had his own ways, and I don't think there was too much back and forth regarding conversation with players and what they're wanting. And obviously, when Frank came in, it was a new era, and Frank got things out pretty quickly on what he wanted, and it worked well for him as well.
We've still got a bit of time left if people want to put a few more questions to Steve, and I'll pass them along to him. So when you played for Brian then, Steve, did he have, because obviously Peter Taylor wasn't around when you were there, he must have had people who he worked closely with. Was it Liam O'Kane and people like that? Who
yeah, Ron Fenton was in his management team, Alan Hill, Liam O'Kane, Archie Gemmell, they were all there. And obviously, that's his staff and that's his backroom staff. And I couldn't even comment on what they spoke about, behind closed doors or in their offices. But that was his staff. And obviously, Brian was limited time on the training field, shall we say. And Ron was down there, and Liam and Archie took most of the session. So that's where we got most of our work in, through the coaches.
Did he make you run through the nettles? I've heard this story from Gary Birtles. Were the nettles still around then?
Yeah, the back wall, where the brick wall where the goal was painted on, behind was all the grass cuttings and the nettles. Used to run through those. Used to be the last man in the five-a-side goal. It was a strange time, but it worked.
When that's happening, do you think, what the hell's going on, or do you just buy into it?
You just do as you're told, Matt. Funnily enough, and it was strange. Don't get me wrong, it was strange. And I can't see Mr. Messi or Mr. Ronaldo wanting to run through the nettles or jump in a five-a-side goal because the manager tells him to. I think they will look at him in a very, very strange way.
If Brian Clough was your manager now, or any manager now, would he still make players run through the nettles, or would he adapt, do you think? Did he have that about him?
I'd think he would adapt, but I still think those old values of running through nettles don't do me any harm, to be fair. I don't mind a nettle.
You don't make your players run through nettles, do you?
No, we've not got any. It's well maintained around at Basford.
Yes, true. Right, last few minutes. If anyone wants to put any questions to Steve. Where do you think Forest will finish this season, Steve? Obviously, it's a short season and a lot of games. How do you see it going?
I think it would be another successful year if they get to the playoffs. I don't think their principles will change, that they need to get to the playoffs. It'll be a tough ask to get automatic promotion, but playoffs will be a success in most people's eyes.
Do you think it's a stronger or a weaker
coach crawling behind the camera now?
Do you think it's a stronger or a weaker championship this season when you think that it's Watford, Norwich, and Bournemouth that have come down?
I don't think it changes year in, year out. The ones who come down obviously hold all the aces. They've got the money, they've got the experience of being in the Premiership, as long as they can hold on to their best players. So it's going to be a big ask for a team that hasn't been in the Premier League for so long. It's been such a long time. I think it's 20 odd years since Forest were anything around the Premier League. So it's going to be really tough for them.
Do you think the squad looks stronger this season going into, when you think of the additions and the fact that Touchwood, Matty Cash is still there, and Joe Worrell and people like that?
Yeah, I think it is. I think they've signed, like I say, some really experienced players who have experience of playing in the high level and playing in the Championship for a long time. And obviously you've got an external from Europe. So as long as you can keep hold of your nucleus of the team that did well last year and add to it, they've got a chance of success.
Last question as it stands from listeners. Jonathan Shanahan asks, this is a good question, did you see the potential in the young Roy Keane, and were you surprised he became a world-class player?
No, I wasn't surprised at all when he came over when 17 and with a pair of boots and a carry bag and made his debut at Liverpool. It was fantastic. And I think from playing in any position where he was playing at Forest, he played centre-back, he played centre midfield, right wing. You could see, he was a superstar in the making, and his career at United, and now even his punditry is spot on. He's very controversial. He was very controversial when he played also, I always saw potential in him, and I think he's done fantastic for himself.
Was he the same person when he signed, I should say? Did he have sort of chip on his shoulder and swagger about him even as a kid?
He was confident, shall we say. He came from obviously an Irish background that were heavily into the boxing, and he was confident in his own ability. But I don't think anybody could have imagined within the first month of being there that what he'd go on to achieve. But no, he was always very confident. He always had something to say for himself, and he wasn't shy coming forwards.
And did he fit well into that dressing room? Who has a few bigger characters there, like Pierce, obviously, and guys like that? Did he fit in well? He
fit right in. Like I say, he didn't hold any punches. He just said what he wanted to say. He still says what he wants to say, and I think that's a great part of his character.
Excellent. Just remind people when the Forest v Basford game is. It Tuesday night, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Tuesday night down at Greenwich Avenue on the 8th September before our league campaign starts on September the 19th at home to Warrington Town.
And if there are any tickets left, there probably won't be, but if there are, I think you can get them through the Basford website. So
you go to the Basford website. I think they're holding some back, but I don't know how many. Like I say, it's been very popular and lots of tickets were sold very quickly, but we have got a limit of 600 maximum.
Well, we do thank everyone for logging on for this kind of abbreviated Southern podcast and pointing your questions to Steve. And of course, Steve, we thank you very much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed that. Thank
you, Matt. No problem at all. Pleasure.
There is a longer episode with Steve where he discusses his whole career on our feed for, I think it's episode 2. I think this is like episode 28 or something. So if people want to go back and watch that whole 45-minute episode, just search Garibaldi Red on YouTube and podcast providers. And of course, do give us a good rating because that really helps. So thank you very much to everyone. And thanks very much to Steve. And we will catch you soon. Thank you for listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thanks for listening.